Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely, always ready to explore.
Today we're going deep into the world of deer mice, a creature that might be scurrying right under our noses without us even realizing it.
More common than you'd think.
That's right. These little guys, these deer mice, they're all over North America. But there's a lot more to them than meets the eye, right?
Oh, definitely. There's a reason they thrive in so many different places, from forests to deserts, even the Arctic.
Wait, the Arctic? Seriously, that's mind-blowing. I mean, how do they even survive those harsh winters?
Well, it's a combination of things. They're incredibly adaptable, both in their behavior and their physical features.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is a deer mouse? Paint me a picture.
We'll picture a mouse, but with a bit more flair.
Flare.
Yeah, they have this really striking two-toned fur coat. The back is usually a reddish-brown or grayish-brown, which helps them blend in with the ground and leaves.
Camouflage. Smart move.
Exactly. And then their belly is bright white, which makes them harder to see from below against the sky. It's a pretty clever survival tactic.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. So they're like tiny deer blending right into their surroundings.
Right. And that's probably where they get their name from, too. But it's not just the coloring that's cool. They also have these huge eyes and long, sensitive whiskers.
Okay, so those big eyes, are we talking night vision?
You got it. Those eyes are perfect for seeing in the dark, which is when they're most active.
Makes sense? Less chance of becoming some predator's lunch if you're out and about at night.
Exactly. And those whiskers, they're like extra senses. They help them feel their way around in the dark, almost like a cat. They can detect even the slightest changes in air currents, which helps them avoid obstacles and find food.
Wow, it's like they have a whole other world we can't even perceive. And speaking of food, what do these nocturnal adventurers eat?
Well, they're not picky eaters, that's for sure. They'll pretty much eat anything they can find. We're talking seeds, nuts, berries, insects.
Even insects. So they're omnivores.
Yeah, pretty much. They're opportunistic omnivores, which means they'll take advantage of whatever food sources are available. They even eat some fungi.
Wow, they really are adaptable, aren't they? But what about winter? How do they find enough food when everything's covered in snow?
Well, that's where their hoarding instincts come in. They spend a lot of time in the fall gathering and storing food for the winter.
Like little squirrels. So they hide little stashes all over the place.
Precisely. And they're surprisingly good at remembering where they put everything. Studies have shown that they can remember the location of hundreds of different caches.
That's insane. I can barely remember where I put my keys. So all this activity, foraging, hoarding, avoiding predators, it sounds exhausting. How much sleep do these guys even get?
Well, being nocturnal means they're mostly active at night. But even then, they're not exactly sleeping beauties. They have a lot to do in a short amount of time.
Right, because their lifespan isn't that long, is it?
It's not. In the wild, they usually only live for about a year, maybe two if they're lucky.
Wow, that makes their whole hoarding and survival strategy even more impressive.
It really does. But even though their individual lives are short, they play a huge role in the ecosystem.
How so?
Well, for one, they're a major food source for a lot of predators. Owls, snakes, weasels. They all rely on deer mice for a tasty meal.
That's a pretty important role. I never thought about it that way.
They also help to spread seeds around thanks to their hoarding habits. They'll often forget about some of their stashes, and those seeds can end up sprouting new plants.
Oh, so they're accidental gardeners.
Exactly. They might be small, but they're making a big impact on the world around them.
Well, I have to say, I'm starting to see deer mice in a whole new light now. They're like tiny, furry superheroes working behind the scenes to keep the ecosystem running.
I think that's a great way to put it. They're a reminder that even the smallest creatures can have a huge impact.
Okay, so we've talked about all the good stuff, but there is one thing we need to address, and that's hantavirus.
Right. That is something to be aware of. Deer mice are known to carry this virus, which can be serious for humans.
Yeah, it's important to be careful, especially if you live in an area where deer mice are common. But can you tell us a little bit more about it? Like, how common is it, and what are the risks?
Sure. So it's important to remember that most deer mice don't actually carry hantavirus. It's only a small percentage of the population. But even so, it's best to take precautions, especially when cleaning up areas where deer mice might have been, like sheds or attics.
So what kind of precautions are we talking about?
Well, the most important thing is to avoid direct contact with droppings. Don't sweep them up dry because that can stir up dust and you don't want to breathe that in.
So what should people do instead?
The best way to clean up droppings is to wet them down first with a disinfectant solution and then carefully wipe them up. And always wear gloves and a mask while you're doing it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other tips for preventing hantavirus?
Yeah, make sure to seal up any cracks or holes in your home where mice could get in, and keep foods stored in airtight containers. Basically, just make it less inviting for them to hang around your house.
So it's about being aware and taking some simple steps to protect ourselves. It's not about fearing these creatures, really.
Exactly. We can appreciate them for the fascinating creatures they are, while also being mindful of our own safety.
Well said. And I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of deer mice.
Time flies when you're learning about amazing creatures.
It really does. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. We've talked about how deer mice are incredibly adaptable, but what about the challenges of a changing world? How might climate change and habitat loss affect their survival strategies? Something to think about as we continue to learn and explore the incredible diversity of life on Earth. Thanks for joining us.